Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for another Pick'ems. We're going to be saying a goodbye to the Challenger stage that is now in the rearview mirror. But before we do, let's quickly just summarize how things went before we go about our ways and reach our next destination of the Legends stage. So we got 5 out of 9 correct. I think that's par for the course. A lot of people were getting 5, some were getting 6, and then quite a few people were getting 4 or less. So if you have already lost out on the Diamond Dream, rest in peace. You will be remembered. But if you manage to get 5 or 6, congratulations. That's all that's really important for the Diamond. As I say every time, I'm not looking for flawless results here. I'm just looking to hit that sweet diamond coin. And we're still on track. The dream is still alive. We had 5 picks correct with a day to go, so I felt very comfortable. I hoped that Pain would give us a 6th just for that extra little boost of confidence. Didn't quite happen. They had a difficult game against Monty, and they were a bit disappointing, Pain. They didn't quite reach the heights I expected them to. Liquid, a lot of people are confused about this pick, but as ever, my 3-0 picks are always the wild card picks. They're always the gambles. I said in my previous video, I thought there was every chance they wouldn't even make it out of the groups, and they nearly didn't, but they are capable of such glorious heights that they're a team that for me encapsulates the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde approach to Counter-Strike. Like, will they, won't they? Will they go huge? Will they go tiny? You never really know with Liquid, and we saw, I would argue, glimpses of both. They soared, and then they came down like the Hindenburg, and we all know how that one ended. So I'll get back onto Liquid in a moment, because they are a team that's definitely up there in contestation for the likes of a 0-3 pick. I think some people might even put them as their 0-3. Biggest disappointment was Mouse. I did not expect them to get banged out like they did. It was more of a gamble pick, taking Mouse in this one. But who realistically thought Mouse were going to get 0-3? Like, honestly, I think very, very few people. You might have thought they wouldn't make it through, but 0-3? Like, no way. OG, when you have players like Dexter, you expect them to perform better than this. Yes, Nexa went out around February time for personal reasons, but that's enough time for them to bring Nico in, and they have had some good performances online, on tournaments, so I was expecting them to make it through. Didn't happen. They ended up getting disappointingly crushed. Huge performance from G2. They were phenomenal. ENCE was fantastic as well, and NiP had moments where I want to believe in them, but they also had some pretty off games as well, and we'll get back into that in just a moment, because now it's time for the Legends stage. Now, I've seen some people making comments and getting a bit snarky and a bit snappy about, no pun intended actually, because I'm going to talk about ENCE pretty soon, snappy about picks and all that kind of stuff. It's really important, guys, to pick your own teams for this. I mean, I shouldn't have to say this, but I will, just for the sake of a caveat. Like, pick your own teams. If you want to listen to my advice or my educated stats or educated guesses or whatever, or other people's pick'ems, then by all means do just that. But at the end of the day, these are stabs in the dark. They are guesses. When you have a format that includes multiple best of ones and then a best of 3 potentially to either progress or be eliminated, there is always an element of RNG, especially when you take into account the pressure that is on the players' shoulders. For some of these guys, it's their first ever majors. For some of these guys, they've never played at a Legend stage before, and the pressure is definitely going to be a factor. Even if they've looked great online and great in smaller tier tournaments, it's not the same as being at a major. So you have to take that into account. And whether I like the major system or not is a separate video for a separate day. The facts of the matter are, these are educated guesses. So if you follow my choices and you also get wrecked, that's on you, Chief. Make your own choices. Right, now, that being said, round 1 matchups are as follows. Na'Vi take on Gamer Legion. 9 face Liquid. Furia versus Monty. Fnatic against NiP. A classic, mouth-watering match from years gone by. Heroic and FaZe is a phenomenal match on paper. That should be a very close one. Into the Breach against Apex. Vitality G2 is the pick of the day. I cannot wait to watch that. Bad News Eagles then will go head-to-head against ENCE. So, because some of these matchups, I'm going to be honest, I did have Liquid on my radar to put them as my 0-3 pick. Now, there's a few things that save Liquid from the 0-3, as far as I'm concerned. The first one is they're against 9 in their first match, and I don't want to make any disrespect whatsoever against 9. I think they're actually a solid team that's really, really hit the ground running and been very good as of late. But Liquid are now warmed up. They're bedded into their environment. They've been here for quite a while. They've played games in front of the, the stage and all these kinds of aspects that go into it. And these are some underrated aspects as well, by the way. Like, Liquid are now comfortable. They've had their jitters, they've had their nerves, they've had their really bad performances out of the way, and they've managed to survive. And at the end of the day, however you perform in the Challenges stage, if you survive through to the Legends stage, that's a job well done. It wasn't great. It really wasn't great, but they got it done. And so I think they're going to come into this game against 9, probably the favorites, in my opinion. I still think it's a bit of a coin flip who wins this. But I think the fact they have already played so much, they've got their shakiness out of their system, they've got a bit of confidence built now. They did clean sweep, they were 0-2, they came through 3-2. These are all good factors that I think will serve Liquid well in this game. So, for that reason, I'm not putting Liquid as my 0-3. There's another couple of teams I was thinking about putting as 0-3, but I am going to put Into the Breach. And this one hurts, obviously. The UK man inside me is sad. But there was also UK representation in Fnatic, obviously, with Mezzy, so it's okay. I'm sure Fnatic can get the job done. We'll talk about them, actually, in a little bit first. But, Into the Breach, they're against Apex in their first game. Apex went above and beyond my expectations, to be honest with you. They were in the conversation to maybe squeak through. I thought about putting them in instead of Pain. I didn't. And they went through 3-1, and they looked really quite good as well in the process. So, like, fair enough to Apex. Congratulations. You surpassed my expectations and a lot of people's. Well done indeed. So not only have they came through 3-1, but additionally, they've came through 3-1 looking sharp. They are already dialed in, and they face against Into the Breach. These players have never been at this level before. They have not played at a legend stage of this magnitude before. The last CSGO major as well. A lot of pressure is on these guys' shoulders. And they are a very capable team. You know, they've got wins against VP at the RMR, Pain at Brazy Party. These are legit wins. Take nothing away from these guys, but they just don't have enough consistent results at this level of play for me to have confidence in their ability to take maps and to take consistent maps. Now, they could be Apex. It is possible they could be Apex. Maybe Apex now. There was no pressure on them in the Challenger stage. Now maybe the Legend stage, the pressure starts to mount, and these guys start to get in their own heads a little bit. Maybe Into the Breach can make the most of that. Again, it's a best of one. Anything can happen. But I have to believe that the Apex are going to get the job done there. And then when you look at the 0-1 bracket, there's going to be some mammoth teams in this one. I mean, you're looking at the loser of FaZe and Heroic, potentially. The loser of G2 and Vitality. The loser of Fnatic and Nip. The loser of Furia and Monty. Like, there's some real big names that they could be facing off against in that 0-1 game. So, they're going to be my 0-3 pick. Now, normally, I would go through teams to advance after going for my 3-0, but I'm going to do it the other way around this time, because I think I want to get my teams to advance out the way first, and that allows me to focus on the 3-0 wildcard next. Liquid are a team that some people might be thinking about putting in their 0-3. I've even heard some people talking about putting them as their 3-0 pick. I'm not going to make that same mistake twice, boys. They were shockingly bad in the Challenger stage. They beat 3 teams in best of 3s, back-to-back, of course. Those 3 teams, though, were Fluxo, Complexity, and Greyhound. I mean, no disrespect to those teams at all. 3 of the weakest teams in the Challenger stage. 3 teams, by the way, that I saw multiple people putting as their 0-3 picks going into the Challenger stage, and that's who Liquid had to beat to get through to this Legend stage. Now again, I go back to what I said before, you got to the Legend stage, that's all that matters, but we can't ignore that. So Liquid are not in the conversation for me to advance. Maybe they will, for all the reasons I said before, I just don't believe in them. So I'm going to go from left to right, team I most think is going to make it through and most confident about, to least. G2 is going to be my most confident team. They breezed through the first 3 games. Yes, they had a game against the Mongols first, and it was looking a bit scrappy at a few moments. They didn't even need Nico to be showing up in classic Nico fashion. Hunter was a monster. m0NESY had some great games as well. Nico was a little bit cold by his own high standards. He never really got into sort of 4th or 5th gear, in my opinion. So if he can have that big game mentality, this is really the Legend stages where the big game players really step up and you start seeing what they're capable of. If he's able to reach that level while Hunter and m0NESY is still performing, man, G2 are going to be a juggernaut. Like, you're not going to be able to stop these guys at all. So I feel very, very good about them making it. Heroic's going to be my next team to make it through, as their game is against FaZe. I don't want to put them in the 3-0 bracket at all. Against FaZe is not going to be an easy first game, especially as FaZe are already warmed up at this tournament, but Heroic are one of the favourites to win this major as far as I'm concerned. They're always there or thereabouts. Kaden and the boys always seem to just brute force or grind their way through. Like, they're always there or thereabouts. I think this is going to be another one of those cases where Heroic get the job done, and quite comfortably. I can see them going through 3-0, 3-1, same as G2. So those two kind of speak for themselves. Next team that I'm comfortable and confident in is going to be ENCE. Similar for some of the reasons I talked about G2, they were the other team that went through 3-0. They looked incredibly sharp in the process. Snappy continues to be, in my opinion, one of the best IGLs, if not the best on the planet right now. He is up there in the definitely in the conversation, and he's got behind him players like Diha who are just so consistent. My only concern is that we've seen Nertz and Sun Pius blow hot and cold quite a bit. They have games where they are on fire, they can't miss, and then there's games where they just disappear entirely. That could be a concern for Ents. But I think when you consider Diha's consistency, Snappy's IGLing, he's also a veteran player now. They've been around the block for quite a while as a roster, as the core members of the roster. They've got Saw behind them as the coach, who's a rock-solid coach as well. Like, this is just a team that I think is going to make it through to the champion stage, and probably fairly comfortably as well. Their first game is against Bad News Eagles. I think it's a very winnable game. Next, I'm going to go with Vitality. Now, Vitality, when it comes to majors, have always been very, very shaky. Like, they've had performances where they've been banged out in the Legend stage. Like, they haven't reached their potential. But I still can't look past their roster. I still can't look past the effortless amount of skill and talent that this team has. And so I'm going to put them in as one of my teams to advance. I'm nowhere near as confident about them to advance as a G2 or a Heroic, but I still think that they're going to get the job done when it's all said and done. It might have to be a squeak. It might have to be a bit of a butt clench, you know, a 3-2 kind of score, but I feel like they will make it. When we get to best of threes especially, they're going to really, really start hitting the ground, I believe, at least. Next, I'm going for FaZe. And I'm going for FaZe because even though they did have a couple of scrappy games to kick things off, ultimately they looked solid as soon as they started to hit their form. They remain as one of the most dangerous teams, in my opinion, on Nuke because they have the best player outside on CT side, which is Rain. He's always an absolute monster. And when it comes to majors, this guy always delivers. He's just always there. Like, he is just an absolute powerhouse in multiple ways for FaZe, and I just continue to be impressed with him as a player. The longevity that he's had, the longevity that Karrigan has had, and I think they've got more than enough skill and talent behind those two like core pillars of the team to really make the most of this. Is this the FaZe of Antwerp? Absolutely not. But maybe the Legend stage is where we start to see shades. And shades in the current landscape of how CS is going, without a definitive, like absolute era-based team, might be good enough to see them grind their way into a semi-finals or even a finals. That might be all it takes. So I'm going to put FaZe there. I think if you leave FaZe out, it's a big gamble. It's a big risk. Next, I'm going to go with Furia. Furia, for me, are always in contention as a potential 3-0 pick. They are a wild team by their nature and how they approach the game. They're an incredibly entertaining team, of course. I was thinking about putting them as my 3-0 pick. I was really contemplating doing that. But I think they're always going to have a potential to lose a map in them. They always seemingly start quite slow as well at these kind of tournaments, and Monty's the kind of team that could very well punish them as they're against them first. So I'm going to put Furia as an advancing team, but I'm not going to have the faith that they can 3-0 here. We're going to maintain the 3-0 as our gamble wildcard pick. And the last team that I feel confident to put through is going to be Na'Vi. It's not the Na'Vi of old. It's not the Na'Vi that people were talking about having an era at one point. It just isn't. Simple himself isn't quite at that level anymore, but it's the Legend stage, and this is where players of that caliber certainly do show themselves and show their worth. I'm hoping for Na'Vi it's going to be another good performance here, and if it is, I think they'll coast through fairly comfortably to the champion stage, and then who knows. And depending on their performances as well, will very much, if they do make it through to the champion stage, if they come out here and they're looking good and they're looking great, they're getting like a 3-0, then some people are going to begin to believe that they'll win this major. I think that's the kind of team that they are. That's the kind of players that they have on the roster. You know, there'll always be believers out there for Na'Vi. So the reason I've done this is because I'm now leaving a bunch of teams that are in contestation to potentially 3-0, but I don't know if they'll even make it through. You know, kind of how I felt about Liquid in the previous stage. So I'm looking at 9. I'm looking at Fnatic, Bad News Eagles, and NiP. Now, the reason I'm not looking at Apex, and some people will be surprised at that, especially as I expect them to beat Into the Breach in the very first game, is because when it comes to best of threes against some of the best teams on the planet, I just don't have the faith that Apex are going to be able to beat like a G2, a Heroic, an Ents, a Vitality, a FaZe, a Furia. Like, I don't believe they're going to beat one of these teams in a best of 3. I don't think that they have the veterancy yet as a united core. I don't think that they have that capability to beat one of these teams. Whereas if you look at like a Fnatic with the amount of veterancy they have, I think they're more of a shout. Bad News Eagles, for some reason, Bad News Eagles can play terribly coming into a major. Like I've actually sat down and had conversations with them at the hotel bar in Antwerp. They even said like they come into the major like sucking by their own admissions, just sucking, losing against tier 3 teams, tier 2 teams, whatever. But when it comes to the major itself, it's like there's just this magic. Like there's this aura about the major, and they all just step up. It's like, right, we've been chilling, we've been having a good time, boys. Now it's time to suit up and go to work. So Bad News Eagles are always in the conversation, in my opinion, to make it through. But the fact they're against ENCE in their first game means I can't really feel good about putting them as my 3-0. Do I expect Bad News Eagles to beat ENCE in that first game? No, I don't. So they're out of contestation as far as that's concerned. They're not a contender. I'm going to be putting Fnatic as my 3-0 pick. Now, NiP, to me, I said I'd talk about them a little bit further on in the video. NiP, to me, had moments of very impressive play. Headtrick, though, is a bit too inconsistent. And the biggest disappointment for me was Brolin. So I have Brolin in my fantasy league for the Challenger stage. And he was very disappointing. He's one of those players that at one stage was touted as like the next big Swedish talent. And ever since he's joined NiP, especially recently, I feel like we haven't seen that level from him. We haven't seen the Brolan that we know he's capable of delivering. And that is a problem. You know, if you're going to be going through 3-0, you're going to be beating teams, you're going to be able to take it to teams here as a gamble wildcard kind of roster, then I need to believe that you have the players capable of carrying you through to the finish line. And on NiP, right now, as I look at the team, I just don't see it happening. Whereas Fnatic, I'm a little bit more confident about. They play against NiP in their first game. If they win that game, I think they've got a chance. They've always got a chance to potentially 3-0, but it is a gamble. It's a wild card, don't get me wrong. A lot of people will raise their eyebrows seeing a 3-0 pick. It just allows me to stack out 7 teams here that I feel very confident about. In all honesty, I'd be surprised if 6 of these 7 teams don't make it out. I feel very comfortable about that in itself. Whether we get the 0-3, 3-0 is kind of irrelevant at that point. So, do you agree or disagree, guys? Comment in the section below. Let me know who you have for your pick'ems. How did you do in the last pick'ems as well? I hope that you managed to get 5 or more and the Diamond Dream is still alive for you. I don't normally say this, but you know, I'm not really a YouTuber. I don't really embark to be a YouTuber either, but there's going to be a lot of content coming up. We decided that we were going to focus on the Legend stage for the daily content with me, Dualism, and Frog. So that's what we're going to be doing. We'll probably be bringing you a preview / recap of the Challenger stage going into the Legend stage as well, sometime today or tomorrow. And so if you do enjoy the content, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It will help, and I'll try and do more content in the future. Additionally, in the comment below, I'm going to make a pinned comment with my fantasy league on HLTV. So if you want to join, we got like 40 teams last time, which is really cool. If you want to join that and see how you do against me and the other members of the community, then by all means do that. And thank you very much for your time. The next time you'll see us, it'll either be for the daily recap videos or it'll be for the champion stage pick'ems, and we'll see if our Diamond Dream is still alive or if it's crashed and burned. I'll see you next time.